Hey, what's going on, guys? I am Sarah, the lovely mind behind Sarah Wilson Consulting. I started web design a few years ago and found that I really enjoyed it. So I just kept with it and got a little bit into graphic design and branding, and it's become a whole thing. So if you're looking to learn a bit more about that or to get some work done yourself, you can check out my videos. I'll be posting a lot more often in the coming weeks, and you can also head to my website, check out some of my prior work, and send a request, and we'll get to chatting about your project. So let's get into the video. Big question that I get all the time: how do I create a website for free? There's a whole thing. I mean, there's so many ways to create a website, right? And there's a lot of ways you can get it for free, but you have to ask yourself a couple of questions. One of them is, what do you need your website to do? Because that makes a huge difference in where you create your website and how you go about it. Another question is, how free are we talking? Are you talking like, I don't want to pay anything at all? Because that means you don't want to own your own domain, which means you'll be using a subdomain. And there's kind of some perceptions associated with that. The other thing is, are you expecting to be taking payment for things? How comfortable are you with coding? Right? That can get a little bit funky. A lot of people are like, no thank you, I don't want to code. Okay, that's okay. There's a lot of builders out there that you can use. But before we get into that, I want to go over a couple vocabulary terms so you know what the heck I'm talking about. So you've got your domain. Your domain is your address online. So for Google, it's google.com. For Wix, it's wix.com. For Instagram, instagram.com, and so on. It doesn't have to be .com. That's just the most common one that people recognize. There's .org, .biz, .co, .ai. There's a ton of them out there. When you are looking at getting your own domain, please consider the fact that there's separate pieces to your website. There's your domain, there's your host, and then there's wherever you build and or deploy your website. Those are three separate services. A lot of newer companies like to combine them all, like Wix, Squarespace, Framer, any of the newer builders out there that are no code. They will try to combine all of that under one roof. They tell you it's free for a year. Okay, whatever. For the convenience, you end up shooting yourself in the foot later on. Well, that's an exaggeration. It can get a little annoying because they want you to stay in their ecosystem. So you gotta think about that when you're making your decisions. This is still corporate America. These people are not out here to be your friend and help you, okay? They're just trying to make a quick buck. And how they make a quick buck is making it very hard for you to leave. So you just give up and you keep paying them. It is what it is. That's the name of the game. It's part of it. So from a stickler standpoint of, I want to maintain as much control over my property as possible, I would say buy your domain separately. Even though they tell you get a free year, domain is not expensive. Okay? It's not. It's really not expensive. I know it's tempting, but it makes it very easy for you to say, you know what, maybe I don't like this service, I want to move somewhere else. You don't have to go through a headache of trying to switch the domain over. I have bought my domain completely outside of Wix. I used my domain with Wix for a while, and when I wanted to switch back, I didn't have a huge problem with it. but sometimes it can get a little bit tricky. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's not the end of the world, but it's nice to have that peace of mind knowing that I can go wherever I want to and I'm not going to have any troubles with it. The other thing is, when you're using these builders, like I said, they want you to stay. So when you're building out your website, I want you thinking long term. I don't want you to think about, oh, I'll just use this for a month and see where it goes, because it takes time to build this out, right? And so you spend all this time and energy. Maybe you spend 2 to 3 weeks building it out, right? Designing it. You do a little bit here, you forget about it for a weekend, and you come back to it, sort of thing. By that time, you don't want to have to come back. You want to be done. You're going to want to be done with it. You're not going to be sitting there excited, like, Saturday morning, I can't wait to do it again. No, you're going to be so over it. So I want you to be thinking a little bit long term about where you're going to be housing your website, because generally that's where you would want to keep your website for a while. Not to say that you can't, it's just you're thinking you're not going out to buy a couch every weekend, right? So you want to spend a little bit of time to make sure you get the kind of couch that you would want to hold on to for a while. And part of that is figuring out what you need your website to actually do and what you're okay with it not doing. Okay. I say this because a lot of people get so excited by the idea and they're saying, I want it to do everything. Well, not all of them are designed to do everything. That is not their strong suit. Not to say it can't be done, but if it is not their strong suit, that means you're going to have a very fun time figuring it out. And if something breaks, you're going to have a super fun time trying to, switch to something else because everything is all junked up. It's just something to keep in mind. It's not the end of the world. I don't want you to be scared of picking the wrong one and getting into like a freeze state, right? It's just something to keep in mind. These are things that you want to keep in your mind when you're deciding. It's not like it's the end of the world thing, but it's like man, I wish I would have spent 5 minutes to figure that out before I spent 6 hours building on this thing to realize they can't even do what I want them to do, right? There goes websites. To make a really good one, it takes planning. It's not something that you just jump into and just start doing stuff, right? And ask yourself a couple questions here. What do I need it to do? Do I want to use my own domain, or am I okay with a subdomain? Do I feel comfortable coding or not? And what will I do if I need help? So let's take the example. I had a lovely person who reminded me that I needed to make this video. Shout out to you, Journey to Antoinette. Basically, they said, I have a lot of things that I've been doing. They got yoga classes that they're doing. They've got Patreon stuff that they've got going on. They wanted to be able to book virtual sessions with people. I think they wanted to make some sales as well. I could be wrong. Oh yeah, they said they have in-person pop-ups and they want to be able to have people purchase things from them. So that's a lot of functions for a website, especially a free website, to be able to do. So let's get real with your expectations. It sounds like they're wanting an all-in-one suite for their home base for all their services. It's possible. However, for free and without coding, let's consider our options. You're going to be looking at some of these, big box builders out there. So things like Wix, like Squarespace, like Shopify, the very well-known ones. And it really you got to consider how much customization you want to do as well as far as your branding. Because if you're wanting super complex designs, you're not going to get that with any of those, especially not for free. But you can make something shake. You can really make it work. It just, you have to be honest with yourself about how far you're thinking you're gonna get with free. Like I said, a lot can be done. But for their purposes, my recommendation is, if you've got something that's working and you don't want to pay any money, stick with whatever it is that's working and just link it to your website. So what that would look like is, let's say you create a new website on, they mentioned Wix. So if you're comfortable in Wix, awesome. Wix is very well known to be a free starting point for people to get online. No problem there. So you got your Wix page, this is who I am, this is what I do, blah, blah, blah. Sign up for yoga classes. Click that button. It links out to Eventbrite or whatever you've got that's got all your classes hosted, or it links out to your cal.com booking page where they can see your appointment times, right? And they just, select their day, their time, and click book. If you want them to have to pay for the class, there's also a way that you can link your payment options there, so where they have to pay before they can actually book that spot. Awesome. All right. You've got your Patreon thing. You say, hey, if you're looking for this type of content, blah, 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 on Patreon, click here, and it clicks out to their Patreon. Looking to buy from my shop. Now, this depends on how much you're trying to sell. If you just want to sell one item here and there, that's fine to just use a payment link. But if you want people to be able to have a shopping cart function, that can get a little bit more tricky. There's still a couple of options for that. The first thing that came to mind was Square. Because using Square, you can create an online store like you would with like Shopify or something like that, but it's for free under their subdomain. And they still have like the option where you can get a reader, right? So you can scan while you're out, right? And people can pay for your items there. But that's not the only option. That's just the first one that came to mind as I'm thinking about it and talking it out. But I want to go back to the payment links. If you don't need a shopping cart, that's super simple, super clean. It doesn't matter where you hosted your content. A lot of times you can just get a payment link that will work. So even if you used something like Payhip, which I'm going to keep coming back to because I think it's a cool product, cool platform. That actually might be a better option for you now that I'm thinking about it. Let's take a look. I got two ideas: Payhip or System.io. And why is that? Well, let me tell you. Both of them you're allowed to host courses for free. You're allowed to collect payment for free. And you're allowed to build out a free website. With that, I don't think you can have your own domain with Payhip. I believe you can with System.io. Don't quote me on that. I'm still figuring those things out. These are ones that I was interested in, but I ultimately decided to develop my own website just because I was like, I'm tired of trying to figure out something that works. I know what I can do, and I'm just start there. But for you, if you're not really comfortable in that space, you can create a free website. You can create blog posts. It looks like you can connect your own domain for the freeze. Yeah, Payhip. That's what it looked like. That's super awesome. You can also do bookings on Payhip. That might be your move, girl. So, for your uses, I think I'm going to recommend Payhip and System.io. One of those. Now, I think Payhip might be a little bit more up your alley, but System.io is another option. They both are allowed to, you can host courses, you can create a free website. You know, it's not going to be the most robust design, but it's there, right? It's available. I believe you can link your domain for free. The only thing is the booking. I don't know about that. I know Payhip has an option. I know System.io talks about like you're being able to use your calendar, but I believe you can only have one meeting setting. So you might have to, on your website, link out to your calendar booking system. Like, I believe cal.com is pretty solid. And it's a way that you can, it's just like a Zoom or something like that, but it's for free, and you can charge people before they can book on your calendar. So that is another option as well. Having to just link the things in there. But yeah, again, it doesn't matter where you build your free website. If you decide to go with GoDaddy, because that's where you bought your domain, it's still possible as long as you just link out to these other places where your content is hosted. You can totally get by on that until you can, you know, afford to do something a little bit more robust. But for everybody else, you're saying, all right, cool. What if I can code? What if I'm comfortable in that space? Well, then the world is your oyster, sweetheart. All you need is your own domain. And even then, if you're okay with a subdomain, go ahead to Cloudflare. Create an account. If you use GitHub, link your GitHub, and go ahead and just host your website. It's just that easy. It's not complicated at all. The only thing with that is, I think that really the only decision you have to make is where you want to build, you know, where you want to do your coding. I mean, there's tons of free environments. I personally, I like Cursor. I think it's pretty cool. But, I mean, there's tons of free ones out there. I think you can even code directly in GitHub, but like, ew. No, don't listen to me on that one. But do what you want to do. I know a lot of people use, I forgot the name of it. I want to say VS Code. I could be wrong. Or Vercel or something like that. Whatever. You know, you have a ton of more options. I would just say the biggest thing you have to worry about is making sure that you consider the mobile functionality. So if you need a way to test that, there's an app that is called Responsively. And even if you have not deployed your website, if you're on just doing local tests on your own computer, you can still enter that into the address bar and it will pull up. So Responsively is really cool because you can see how your website would be showing on different devices. And it's relatively accurate from what I can tell. I haven't had any issues with it. You can see on, I think as old as like the iPhone 6 or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But I have mine set to iPhone 12 Pro, iPad, MacBook Pro, a couple of the 17 Pro Max, a couple Galaxy things, just to test it. But overall, generally you only have maybe 2 to 3 breakpoints anyway to design for. But yeah, that's going to be like your easiest way to test without having to constantly keep redeploying your website. Ask me how I found that out. It took me longer than I'd like to admit. But it is done. I know what works now. And that's been my tech stack lately, is I'll do my coding, save the change, test it on responsibly, and generally it will update real time, so you can see, you know, the changes that you're making. As long as you hit save, it'll show up, and you can just Control Z and then save again if you need to revert those changes. No problems. So yeah, if you're for your uses, darling, I would definitely say check out Payhip or System.io. And if you're going to do custom development, I love Cloudflare. I have not had a single problem with it. I had no issues getting my DNS set up with my domain or anything like that. In fact, I bought another domain through Cloudflare, but I don't think I'm going to have any issues transferring that out, just because Cloudflare is really a major, you know, player in that world. I've no complaints so far, so that's what I would recommend. But yeah, I'd love to hear about your guys' projects. If you have any questions, this was just kind of like to touch on the subject. I didn't even think I was gonna be talking this long, but you know how it goes. But yeah, if you feel like, man, screw all of this, I don't care anymore, go to my website, fill out the contact form. I'll take care of you. All right, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.